Right, so what's in your energy field today? You're alchemizing emotions. It could be part of your divine purpose, or it's just one of the many skills you have. And in particular, you're alchemizing pain, low vibrations, and fear. And I'm led to believe that this is part of your assignment, okay? So you could have been going through these things, or you are going through these things, and you're just being reminded by spirit that that's part of the work that you're doing. It doesn't mean you accept these things and think, oh well, you know, I'll just walk into pain and low vibrational fearful energies because I can alchemize it. No, I mean, unless you're feeling called to, and for some reason your angels and ancestors are sending you there. But personally, I would take a different path. But nevertheless, you've have some in your energy field and you are alchemizing it. And if you so cross these kind of vibrations, yes, you do alchemize it. But you know, alchemy can cause exhaustion, you know, so I wouldn't recommend just walking into those kind of energies. Right, so you've got somebody in, it could be karmic friendships, because that's the only sort of signpost we have out here of a specific person or point of reference. But it doesn't have to be friendships. It could well be lovers, attachment figures, I don't know why I said that, family, co-workers, anything, soulmates, twin flame, karmic. Spirit wants you to know that you're cleverer than these people, and these people know this. I mean, I think a certain amount of intelligence is necessary in life, but I don't personally believe it's as important as people make out. A bit like, you know, like a bit like people make out money so important. I just feel like heart-centered focus is actually the most important. But of course, you know, being clever isn't something to be sniffed at. But for some reason, Spirit wants you to know this. So perhaps you had people in your energy field that didn't like this aspect about you, you know, felt threatened. I'm being brought here to fear. And very often when people feel insecure, they throw it back up on you. And maybe Spirit wants you to know that this is part of the reason that this was happening. You've got somebody who feels like you're no longer in love with them. So that this makes me feel it could be lovers, but again, just put it where it fits because it is a general reading. And will you ever love me again? It's just on top of that. This person could have been lustful, it's sideways. I think they may be wishing they weren't so lustful. Perhaps they were trying to put you in this energy. And if not, just something low base, something low vibrational. And I have a feeling that this person was very focused on money and security. This is the kind of person that they are. But again, put it where it fits. This person's actually seeking help for their behaviour. I think maybe you've removed your energy. So if they're not actually seeking proper help, I have got the therapist card here. So, you know, it could be anything. They could be going to rehab, they could be talking to an elder, they could be journaling, you know, whatever it might be, but that they are in a sort of reflection mode about this low vibrational pain, fear-based energy they're bringing your way, possibly mixed in with lust. And they're really worried that you're no longer in love with them and you won't love them again. I'm not sure why, but this person just didn't believe you would leave. I'm being brought to the word here, soft. They thought you were too soft to leave. And obviously, they've got a rude awakening there. Impressed is upside down. I don't think you're impressed with this energy anymore. If you ever were. If you ever were. The energetic bond is loosened at the very least, if not completely disintegrated. Spirit wants you to know that this person's receiving some kind of karma, and it could just well be having to do this reflection work. And it's affecting their luck. And it's because they're now sort of facing this fear, this pain. But I'm being led to tell you that they haven't clocked that it has anything to do with you. Karma's just lessons, you know, we all have to go through them. But sometimes we have to go through harsher lessons to make sure we don't miss that mark again. Right, so, and Spirit just wants you to know that this person, no matter what they go through, they can't be faithful. And that doesn't have to be in a romantic sense. That could just be faithful to the connection, you know, like doing the right thing, being there for you and so forth. This person didn't know that you're in service, and actually they were getting in the way of you being in service to the divine. For some reason, I'm being led to tell you that doesn't mean that you're perfect. You don't need to be an angel to be in service. But it's better to not have pain and low vibrational things around you. It's better to have some security. And I'm not talking again about money or anything like that. It's an inner security. And for some reason, I'm really being led to tell you that you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be reflective and willing and wanting, you know, having communication with the divine, and asking for forgiveness if you believe it's necessary. Spirit wants you to know that as part of your assignment of being this alchemist, you actually perform spiritual surgery on people, okay? You might have noticed this increasing recently, because I'm being brought here, energy increasing, and I do think your energy is increasing now. I'm hearing that you've got the eyes to see, and there's a lot of light here this morning. Ra is with us. So I think you've been really illuminated to your divine, to divinity itself, and to your, possibly your assignment, you know, assignment here. And assignments, they can look like different things, you know. It could be just making yourself work, you know, like in a way that you weren't before, being gentler with yourself, praying that bit more, making sure you don't step into these low vibrational energies like you once were. But of course it could be something a little bit more defined than that, or, you know, yeah, I think you know where I'm going. Yeah, so what's happening, and I think you probably already know this, when you do remove your energy, I think you're just getting very quick now to pick up people's energy. You're reading energy. You always read energy well, is what I'm hearing. But because you're in this energy of like everyone is fallible, and you possibly were of quite a soft nature, and I don't think that's changed, but you're much more discerning. And you probably don't have roots in fear like you once did, because the angels, God, have stepped in. So you're a bit, or you've both stepped closer to each other. So I'm just hearing you're stronger now. You're more protected now. And where I was going with this is that when you step away or call things out as they are, you're probably picking up on, you're no longer looking at the mask, you're no longer looking at the surface, you're picking up what's underneath, the things that aren't being said, what's underneath the silences, you're not taking things at face value anymore. And perhaps you've either just removed yourself, or you do call people out on it when you feel it. I don't think you're an aggressive person, but again, forgive yourself if, you know, you feel like you've had a bit of a sharp tongue at times. It does take time to work this out, work out being human. It's a delicate balance. Yeah, so this has either happened or it's going to start happening at quite a significant level. It could actually be part of your assignment. And when you're performing this spiritual surgery, all you're doing is bringing the light into the situation. So you're disintegrating the mask or just the gift wrap, the cover, so you both can see what's going on. You already see it, but it's to make it aware, you know, make the other person aware that you can see it. And very often people aren't aware of what's going on beneath the surface of them. Am I saying that you should go around calling everyone out? No, because nobody's perfect. You know, we could, with that kind of light, I'm sure everyone's got that fallibility. But if they're coming into your space, upsetting your peace and playing games with you, and especially if they're trying to manipulate you or make you live in fear, you're allowed to draw a line. You're allowed to make a boundary. You're allowed to say, no more, I know what you're doing, and remove yourself. And you don't even need to say that. You can just remove yourself. Penny dropped is upside down, so I think it took a while for this penny to drop, but I do, and I have felt it in other readings. You always knew. To some extent, you've always been a high priestess, man or woman. You've always known what people were doing. But for some reason, perhaps because you're clearing these energies, because thank God, and you've moved on, and that's literally, do thank God that you've moved on, and God likely moved you. It's just clearer. It's just a cleaner. It's just a cleaner energy. Where else am I taken? Yeah, so these people know they've messed up. They don't have you around to alchemize these emotions anymore. That's causing them pain. The fact they probably know that you're not in love with them anymore, if you know, put it where it fits. And that could be friendships, you know, you're not impressed anymore. You're not impressed enough to stay around. So you're not alchemizing that energy. You're not taking the load. You're not taking the low vibrations. This could be something to do with a therapist. Perhaps you did have a therapist that... Anyway, it doesn't matter. Or it could just be somebody that was supposed to be in a therapeutic role. And again, that could be friends. You know, there's, you know, a good friend is supposed to help. It doesn't mean at the expense of themselves, but they're definitely not supposed to make it harder, because, you know, life can bring that as it's in its own right. Friends are there to hold your hands energetically, but you are no longer holding hands with these people energetically, and it's better for you. And because of this, you've got inheritance on its way. Good news. It could be money, because it's landing on top of money, but I'm also feeling that it could be divine inheritance. So now that you've seen, now the penny's dropped. It couldn't drop the way it is, the way it has now, with this in your energy. You might actually find pennies, or you'll see a penny drop. Anyway, you can now step into your gifts more. You're going to be fully in service, without fear, without low vibrations. Doesn't mean you never ever feel fear, or never have a low vibrational thought, or no, of course not. But the scales are more balanced. I feel like it was very imbalanced because of what you were holding on to. People that very likely saw you as a threat because of your intelligence. And if you don't believe it's intelligence, it could be something else. And intelligence and cleverness, it doesn't have to be that you're just very academic. Intelligence comes in all forms, and cleverness comes in all forms. But essentially I'm hearing gifted in some way. Spirit's asking you to do some stretching and breath work. Perhaps if you still do have a bit of residue of this fear, or you are actually in the situation where you're performing spiritual surgery right now, and when you are doing that, it does come into your energy field. You know, there's no other way around that. So perhaps doing some breath work, some stretching, some prayer work will help move that. Yeah, so these people just don't feel protected anymore. I don't think they even knew what that was, but now your energy is not around alchemizing crap, I'm hearing. It's felt, you know, it's felt, and possibly the pennies dropped for them. Although I did pick up earlier that they haven't recognised the karma is something to do with you. But that may just be some, and then some others are, or it is to come, because it is hitting them, that they are getting these lessons. Okay, so I'm called to go back to this deck, so I will. Okay, so you have people in your energy that don't believe in the divine. In fact, they laugh at the divine. Or maybe they know about your beliefs in the divine, and they found that funny. So maybe that's changing. So this karma situation, this lesson, they're going to start thinking twice. Yeah, these people are trying to spy on you, and they're frustrated that they can't. Or they are, and they are frustrated. But for some of you, they can't. So whether they're blocked, or you've come off social media, or you're not posting as much, but there's frustration here to do with spying. Tell me more about that, please, Spirit. Yeah, I saw that flash. You're stepping into good health. That could be mental health, spiritual hygiene. It could be, yeah, physical, mental, whatever. And we have got energy increasing. So now you've let this go, you can become who you were meant to be. Yeah, exactly. You're going to make these people believe in God. They laughed at you about your divine beliefs, but you're going to start making people believe in God. Or life is going to make them believe in God, and maybe they'll think about you at some point. Oh, you know, that person believed in God. Yeah, so life is just getting better for you. And if you can, try to thank these people for entering your life, but only when you're ready. Don't force it, but be willing. Yeah, so spirit God wants you to stop worrying. So perhaps if you have been performing this spiritual surgery, or you have been alchemizing these very dense emotions, try to take fear out of it. It's hard, because when you're brushing up against that energy, it does have impact. But maybe do this breath work and this stretching, this praying. Maybe this video can help sort of just push you. Just a reminder, you know, these videos very often, you already know, it's just a little affirmation to help you keep going. Spirit's asking you to stick to a schedule that you've made, or make a schedule. Start small if you do find those things quite hard. So if you're like, oh, it would be quite nice to stretch and do breath work, but there's resistance. Start with 2 minutes. You know, obviously, if that seems like ridiculously small to you, make it 10, make it 20, make it 30. But if you find it hard to start new things of anything, start with 2 minutes and build. And be proud of that 2 minutes, or whatever the minutes are that you're saying. So I believe you used to tell your business to these people, and don't tell your business has come upside down. So it makes me think that you were. And obviously I'm not here to tell you that you can't tell anyone your business, but maybe before, when you're in this soft nature, believing everyone believes in God, or if it's not God's, you know, believes in the wonder of existence, you know, sort of especially if you're clever, you're probably like, well, how else could, you know, this come to be? There's got to be some intelligence behind it. So you believed everyone had that kind of level of intelligence, and maybe came to realize that you don't. They don't. And yeah, you're, what's it got hit? Yeah. And you were just around people that were breadcrumbing you. And perhaps you didn't. Perhaps there was a time you didn't believe in God yourself, or you were less godly. But again, I'm really being led to say you don't need to be perfect. I don't know, maybe you had some like connotations with the word God. I know I definitely did growing up in with a religious upbringing. It took me a while to develop a better, yoga's here as well, and we got stretch to develop a healthier relationship with the idea of it. So these people didn't want you to step into this new life, possibly to do with the divine. I could be tapping into someone today that's a little bit awkward, but Spirit's asking you not to. There's not, you don't need to be perfect. No one is. So things are, you've got the good health card, and you've also got skin getting better, hair getting better, you know, life getting better. Perhaps you noticed these things were worse when you were around these energies, and maybe this is going to be your first indication of letting these energies go. It actually not only improves your health, you can see it in your physical appearance. You knew more than these people realize. I'm a bit torn here because they're quite different cards. One's saying you're cleverer than these people and they know it, and then they thought you're stupid, and obviously that's not a nice word, but people do throw that word around and don't mean it in, you know, some very derogatory way. And I think it's not stupid. I think it's that they knew you were clever in whatever form they believed it was, whether it was academically, gifted at things, but they thought you were emotionally not sharp. And that's just because you were allowing these people in your energy, these low vibrational energies, and they were probably manipulating you, and you were there saying everyone's fallible, God's made everyone, and if you weren't saying that, you were sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but I'm going to allow that to happen. Spirit, anything else? Yeah, so you could be seeing signs that this could be feathers. I think I saw feather here. Yeah, feathers. Yeah, you're not. You're stepping into feeling feeling like you're in control. You're around people that didn't want you to take control of yourself. They like, you basically gave a pedestal to the energies around you, and they were low vibrational, and maybe that's why they thought you weren't as clever as you were emotionally, because somewhere inside they knew they didn't mean you well, and there you are giving them a better seat than yourself. And you did that because maybe you come from some trauma, or you just really loved them, and you weren't really truly recognizing the pain that these people were bringing. But God is in your heart and in your mind space. So just, if you do feel like you're a bit disconnected, or because you've been performing spiritual surgery, there's something sort of plummeted it slightly when you're rubbing up against those vibrations, just close your eyes and put your hand over your heart and breathe in there, and know that God lives in your heart. If you want to connect, and you know, you're feeling a little bit unaligned. Yeah, so these people didn't know that you saw right through them, and I was really led earlier on to say you've always known, you've always seen, you just loved these people, and there was an imbalance. Maybe you thought you needed them, maybe you were codependent before you found divinity the way you have. But regardless, it's changed. The shift has been made, you know. Perhaps you got there through yoga and meditation, but you are being asked to keep that up, and just be very thankful that you moved on from these energies. It's not because they're bad, but they were keeping you in heartbreak, and now they're feeling heartbreak, because they just thought, yeah, they feel like a fool. They thought you would always be there. You're over your twin flame. And that leads me to what I was feeling earlier about, will you ever love me again? I feel like you're no longer in love with me. And it's because you're over your twin flame. And it just means that you've closed the door on the lesson. You've learned what you needed to learn from that. And ultimately, it was probably being exposed to very low vibrational energies. And perhaps you went under those low vibrational energies for longer than you would have liked. But nevertheless, perhaps your heart was broken enough so God could come in and sort of rescue you. You know, you were listening. Yeah, and that's my God card that I just saw, and here's Archangel Michael. So this was a spiritual situation, and you did the right work, and you basically accepted no more drama. There could be a Pisces involved in this, or there's somebody just in their emotions. Spirit wants you to know that you're blessed, and if you can relax today, there's a moment of time where you can relax, you know, take that. Okay, so blockages are removed. Upright. Blockages removed has been upside down for a while in different decks. Perhaps you need to let go of a Pisces, but again, it doesn't have to be. There is wedding here. I think maybe somebody's thinking about that with you because it's been years. But when it does come out in different decks and different readings, you know, just it could be a high level of connection, but you know, I think you're aware now what it is that you want in your energy, and what it is, you know, and low vibrational energies, isn't it? Yeah, this person made you shudder. So perhaps they frightened you, or just made you feel very uncomfortable, spiritually uncomfortable. I'm hearing vomiting. Yeah, this person doesn't know that they need to grow up. So we're, you know, but they do only love you. So I'm hearing they have a reason to love you because you were loving. This person, this person wasn't. Spirit wants you to know that everything's okay. So perhaps you've been performing spiritual surgery on people and it has made you shudder because you're vibrating quite high, you're working with the divine, and now this energy's brushed up against you, if not fully immersed into your energy field, and it is making you feel a bit icky or uncomfortable. Maybe you're being reminded of a time when you weren't as tapped in or weren't as in service, was immersed in this pain, and you feel a bit icky about remembering things. But just remember, forgiveness. God is in your heart. You don't need to be perfect. You just have to keep moving on. And but yeah, perhaps you had addictions. I just saw addictions there. Again, addictions they're just coping mechanisms. And life's hard, especially when you come from trauma or you've come down and signed up for a difficult life. I'm waiting again. I am being led to pain. And if you're over this person, who knows, maybe someone new's coming in, but for me it feels like somebody in your past wants this, but you could very well be heading towards that. And what did we see earlier? That I can't see the card now, but you do have divine inheritance on its way. So maybe it's going to come in the form of like a soulmate relationship, but it wasn't where I was led. I did feel it was something from your past. Please allow the messages to fly out in God's will. Okay, so I'm channeling for the highest good of all, to help the collective with their. Yeah, so perhaps you're in something and time just went so fast, like maybe it was a twin flame dynamic, or you've been in this place where you've been developing your gifts and so forth, and you know, before you know it, it's been 7 years, and you're like, oh, like, wow, it feels like 7 weeks. So, you know, I remember it like yesterday. Okay, so what have we got here? Yeah. Yeah, so you've got some spiritual people that really love you. Yeah, so Spirit's saying well done for staying away, and it says, I realise the player being is unhealed. Being a player is unhealed, sorry. So Spirit just wants you to know this person does come in proposing something like that. They can't be faithful. They're in low vibrational energy. They did make you feel sick at times, whether that's physically or just so uncomfortable because, you know, your nervous system is getting shot. They probably impacted your health. And it doesn't have to be the twin flame energy. Perhaps the twin flame energy or soulmate energy awoken you to see it elsewhere. So you saw it in friendships, co-workers. You realised that you were basically, when you sort of had your blinkers on, you were accepting vibrations who weren't helpful to you, and you were there alchemizing emotions that you don't need to. You know, like, you can do it. You know, like, you have that ability, but perhaps you weren't using your intelligence, your cleverness to say, no, I won't go down that path that's dark, and I can see there's potholes everywhere, and there's a big ditch, and I'll go down the one where it's a meadow and there's some flowers. And of course nothing's perfect, but you know, you can choose to go down a path. Like, if you could choose to swim with dolphins or sharks, you know, God made both of those things. But maybe what you were doing before is you were jumping into the pool with the sharks, and you were alchemizing it all, learning, you know, metaphorically, you know, getting bitten, and it was, you know, scary and making you feel uncomfortable, and you were just doing it, not realizing you can swim with the dolphins. You know, that's the other option. Are dolphins always lovely? You know, they can have their mean streaks too, but it's a very different quality to the sharks. Okay, so we're getting to that kind of moment already. Yeah, so start on whatever it is these assignments are. Sorry, it could be assignment, because you know that did come out. What I'm hearing lists, things that you need to do. So the 2 minutes of yoga, the 2 minutes of breathing, the 2 minutes of praying, whatever it is. Yeah. I think you just basically had some hating energy in your energy field, and obviously they were hating because they don't like, you know, that's how they feel about themselves, and they can only reflect that back to you. And what you were doing is you're just alchemizing these emotions, possibly performing spiritual surgery, although I do believe now you've removed yourself, the surgery is really happening. And you loved them, you loved these people. So I wouldn't be surprised if you grew up in an environment where it was more sharkish than it was dolphins, and you thought that's what life is. There wasn't any other choice. And if you did have a difficult relationship with the divine God, you know, whatever you want to call it, maybe it took you some time to get that connection back and trust it, you know, like, tell me more, please, Spirit. Yeah, whatever had been going on for years. But you're not in that energy now. Yes, you could be getting a job offer, or you're doing a project. Then you're gonna get some good results from that. Let's see what we've got here. Yeah, so you're saying bye to anyone that ruins your peace. You're not going down that path with the sharks, or the, you know, the pool with the sharks, or the path that's got in the darkness with ditches and so forth. But before you were, that's what you were doing. Yeah, because you're stepping into your high priestess. You believe in divine timing. A new family's coming. And I'm hearing spiritual family. You're going to be working on projects. That's it. Schedule that I saw earlier. Like, start your schedule, however small. Even if you did 10 minutes a day in total. So you did 2 minutes of breathing, 2 minutes of yoga, 2 minutes of praying, 2 minutes of reading, 2 minutes of writing. it's something, and build up, and be grateful when you're doing that. And again, if 2 minutes sounds ridiculous to you, make it 20, make it 40, but be proud of yourself when you're doing it, because things move, things happen in that year. Twin flame upside down. You're not impressed by your twin flame. You've learnt your lessons. Perhaps you still love them to some degree, but for the most part, you're no longer in love with the situation. And if you are, you know, you feel like you are, it's not anything like it used to be. It's moved, and it's because you're secure in yourself and your cut-off game is on point. But I'm also hearing it's spirit and your angels and ancestors that have helped you with this. It's you can't take all the thanks, but you can. But Spirit wants you to know that they're with you. Okay, so I think this person loves you, but also Spirit loves you, and to stay in that vibration. And if it does bring you any solace that this person loves you, you know, love is never a bad thing, but people could only love with the limits and constraints they have. And like I said in the last reading, which kind of backs off this, if somebody's got a cup of poison, they can only give you the cup of poison, and no matter how much they love you, they can only give you that. And maybe that's what you started to realize, that you want to have lessons with dolphins, not sharks. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. Archangel Michael, please bless myself and the collective, so mote it be.